Are you perchance a Latin student at the high
I
school?
am.
Okay.
Why?
Um, I'll say this loud enough for everybody. But next Wednesday evening, if you have a little free time and exams over, there's a Knox County Historical Society program free at the museum. Do you know where that is on our
Yes, I
program?
do. Yeah.
Okay, and I sent an email to Mrs. Berensmeyer, but I didn't get a
She's
response.
in Israel right now.
Okay, well, I figured
So
it might be spring break.
she would hope you should answer.
But the Kenyan classics professor he and two students for the 200th anniversary last year went around campus and found all the inscriptions in Greek and Latin, translated them, but also looked up in the archives all the history, like why it got put there.
Yeah.
And so they're doing a talk about, it's not a walk, obviously on campus they did it as a walk, but he's doing it like a booklet and all the images but the stories about why they're where they are and who like sponsored them.
When is it? Sounds interesting.
It's next Wednesday night at
how much time do
7:30,
you spend?
second,
I don't know
at the
if
museum.
it's be.
I see it, but I was
So,
gonna
it's free to the public. I'm trying to drum up people to come.
Next Monday, so like that's April.
Wednesday
What
is
kind
the
of
second.
goats
Yes,
you
I
got?
get. This
What's
is-
that?
What kind of goats you got?
7:30. Should be about an hour. It's low
Hey,
key.
I now know what invasive trees do.
Nice.
Sarah.
How they're a
Did you
pain.
put your full
They
name
are
on
major
there?
pain, aren't they?
Like to Mrs.
I did, and I put I was a board member. But she might already be in.
She's in Israel.
Yeah.
I don't exactly like. She kind of like said this
You
like.
got it on, or you?
message
Oh,
that
it's
was, like
on?
creepy. Or it was, like,
Okay,
very
guys, we're
calm.
live here.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well,
All right, you ready?
I don't know when she'll be back, but
Well, welcome to the meeting.
in class if you remember. But no pressure. I will. I don't know why I guessed it.
Brian, how many hours did you have this month?
30.
Okay, guys, we're up and running here. Did everybody get a chance to look at last month's meeting minutes?
We just got them a few minutes
Oh,
ago.
you just got them? Okay.
But
So we'll put that off till next meeting then. All right, we won't talk about that. On the financial report, we're in good shape. The water bags, I told you we were gonna spend about 12,000. It was really 10,800, and only 7,400 came out of this year's budget because I had encumbered money from last year's budget. So we're still gonna be able to put trees in with shade tree money this year. So under old business, I've got the Columbus Delano Pollinator Trail. Last time we talked about, there was still some soil to spread, and then we were gonna do a ground cover. Have they spread the rest of the soil, do you know?
I was hoping that was Scott. So last I spoke with Scott, he had talked with United Ag to get that soil spread out. And then I was going to work with him to come up with a ground cover mix. We were going to throw in some kind of quick seeding flowers, so there'd be some flowers in there this year. But it'd basically be an annual rye that wouldn't come back next year. It'd just be to cover the ground and prevent erosion, keep it from just being a mud pile this year. And then a little bit of spring, summer, fall mix flowers that would just come up real quick. Don't need to cold stratify.
Okay, so,
I don't know why I started with spring. It's like, yeah, it's gonna be all of them.
oh, it's
Yeah.
gonna be everything.
I don't know why I thought it'd only be spring first.
When I planted my yard, I used tall fescue because it's a very hardy grass that doesn't require a lot of extra water. If we did, instead of a rye, if we did a tall fescue, because we're gonna have trails, would that interfere too much with pollinators when they're ready to go in the fall?
I think it would. Yeah, the rye, you can buy rye that's specifically used for ground cover mixes in pollinator areas where you're trying to establish them. So it's designed, it's a GMO product, so it's designed to be sterile. It's not going to come back the next year. We could use a fescue on the path. If we know where the path's going to be, we could specifically seed that area with a fescue or something that's going to be a better turf grass and be more mowable. I don't see an issue with that.
Okay. Just something that I thought about when
Yep.
we were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, we could certainly look at that. I think we have a pretty good idea of where the trails are going to go. So we could go stake out the trails and we could kind of, paint that out and seed that separately with fescue.
Okay.
Wouldn't be an issue.
Very good. Well, while you're here, Bee City's further down on my list. Do you want to talk a little bit about Bee City?
Sure. So the past couple weeks, we took advantage of the cold snap that we got again and the warm snap that was before that to do some live staking. So we were able to get some live stake cuttings from Leaves for Wildlife. The owner was gracious enough to let us go out there and cut some live stakes from some dogwood and some nine bark, elderberry, some other trees. And we got those planted promptly. The next day was about 200 and some, I think 220 maybe. And then the following weekend, we went back to the river and we found mostly willow, various types of willow, and some dogwood that we cut live stakes from, and went in that same day and put those along the riverbank. So basically, we went to the, I guess you'd consider it the north side of the river or the east side of the river, south of the Harcourt Road Bridge. So we kind of, between Arch Avenue Park and the bridge, we were looking for areas that were kind of bare and trying to establish stuff closer to the riverbank itself.
So the first part, was that the lime ponds, or was that's all river?
That was all river.
All river.
I haven't got to the lime ponds yet, but I'll get there when you're done writing.
Okay.
You said a cold snap, like, is that vital, or? would you
So-
cut 'em?
Yeah, they need to be kind of cool. So we got really lucky that it was like warm enough for things to start going. It's weird because I'm not like an expert on the live stakes by any means, but from what I understand, you're targeting like a very specific time in the tree's life cycle where it's just about ready to bud. So if it gets too warm too quick and then the buds start going, you don't have as high of a success rate. And if it's too cold and you do it too soon, then I think they don't bud soon enough and they don't start to root soon enough that they don't take, so they die. So you're trying to catch like a really small window of time, and we got really lucky that we planned it out and we caught that sort of two-week period of time. So it was warm enough that it kind of encouraged them to start thinking about budding, but then cold enough to where they weren't just taking off, right? If it had stayed warm, I think we might have missed our window. But again, I'm not an expert on this, so I don't know. This was our first time doing this.
Tell me, Quentin, I didn't make that. What do you mean? Are you cutting like twigs off a tree?
Yeah, basically we're looking
And
for,
replants themselves.
yep, we're looking anything from this size to this size, and we're just cutting a branch roughly
Like how big?
2 to 3 feet long.
Okay.
And then,
Stick 'em in the ground.
yep, we'll probe into the ground about 2/3 of the length of that, and we stick it into the ground. And we're selecting species that produce their own root hormones. So, you can buy like root hormone at a nursery, and it helps to reroot plants. But these plants will do it on their own. So basically, you cut it, you stick it in the ground, it produces its own roots, and it becomes a new tree.
Are you the guy I would keep messaging? Are you the Bee City Facebook guy?
Nope, that's
Oh,
Jason.
that's somebody else then.
Yep.
I thought it was you.
No, I don't do social
I've been
media very well.
asking a lot of questions, so I like it.
No, it's great. It's really exciting.
Social media is working.
Yeah. And then so this last weekend, we went out and we had additional donations from Leaves for Wildlife. I think we got 68 trees. We planted 37 of them. This is in the environmental covenant area from the, help me out with the numbers, Zane. Is it the 314H? Is that the number for the EPA grant that we got for the river corridor? I can't remember the number exactly, but so we have this covenant area out by the lime ponds that we were basically required to do a mitigation effort because of our in-stream work per the program that we were in. So we didn't have the success rate we thought we were going to get, so we had to plant some more trees. So we've gotten out there and started planting. We got some oaks planted out there. We had some smooth sumac that we planted closer to the river. We also planted a lot of that smooth sumac in the area that was cleared out a couple years ago, just south of the Harcourt Bridge on the west side of the bridge, west side of the river. So yeah, like I said, we planted about 37 trees and shrubs, and we plan on doing the rest hopefully this weekend.
When will the bees and butterflies come?
Whenever they want, I guess.
When's
So with these types of plantings, we normally aren't seeing anything for 2 to 3 years, especially if you're starting anything from seed. So we've had pretty good success with the stuff we planted before. We're looking at about 75% survival rate for the things that we planted, from what we can tell. So it's not bad considering we're not watering. It's in an area that's got a lot of wildlife there. So even though most of it's caged up, still the deer, the rabbits, whatever, is going to try to live off of it. So for the trees and shrubs, I mean, any of those, you might not really see them from the road for another 5 to 10 years. But the bees and butterflies are there. I mean, if there's food for them to find and they're within the area that they could find them, they're going to be there. So when we're down there later in the spring and in the summer, we've seen them even before we planted. We've already seen pollinator wildlife in the area just from the natives that already were there. If that makes sense. We're just trying to expand that, propagate it, mainly keep the invasives from coming back that were removed.
Good? Questions, anybody? What you got?
I thought, well, since you had an interest in what you called live cuttings, which are really dormant hardwood cuttings, there are two concepts involved here. One's seasonality, and the other one's juvenility. And in seasonality, you have 3 different kinds of basically cuttings you can take. And softwood cuttings, which occur right after the cellular division has ceased and elongation has ceased in a plant. So after they produce their first year growth, and the cuttings are soft. And then there's semi-soft, which is later in the summer. And then there are hardwood cuttings, which are dormant cuttings. And you have to stick those dormant cuttings before dormancy has been overcome. And each woody temperate plant has a dormancy period. Some very short, like forsythia, and some rather lengthy. But if you cut them before the dormancy has occurred, has been overcome, then they will not bud out. But they will, and if you wound them when you stick them, they will tend to form callus tissue. Or you can treat them with a hormone and wound them, okay? And so that's the concept that's involved here. And usually with shrubbery, and I assume this is cornerstone if they're doing, or gray dogwood, the shrubs tend to retain their juvenile characteristics much longer than trees do. And that juvenile character is especially pronounced towards the base of the shrub, the proximal part of the shrub, not the distal part, okay? And so another thing that could be done in this situation is to put compost over these shrubs. And the nurserymen do this all the time in their stock blocks, and that's called stooling. And when you when you take light away from those stems, they become etiolated or yellowish and white. And that tends to promote rooting. So what nurserymen will do is pile compost over the stems of their shrubs, and then they will, after about a year or two, they'll take that compost away and they'll have all kinds of rooted layers, which they can then excise from the shrub and plant. So that's another thing they could be doing besides live cuttings if they wanted to. And you would actually have a rooted layer instead of a dormant cutting.
Yeah, be more viable.
Well, it would just grow faster.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what's going on here, if you understand now.
I am.
Good.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
May I ask Quentin a question?
Go for it.
Or whoever can answer. I got a question, so it's more how to answer this, and I'm not sure. I think several people probably got it also. I was asked by actually Susan Gibbons, who is the Civic Affairs person who helped us with the daffodils. Her question was, she has thoughts on a local artist for understanding there's going to be some artwork in this Columbus Delano prairie, and because I'm on this, she asked me, and I said, I really have no idea other than to call the city offices and ask. She wanted to, I guess, have a chance to recommend a local artist or whatever. I just don't know what the process is, and or if someone got back to her.
My understanding is the Safety Service Director's office is handling that part of the project.
Okay.
So I would have her reach out to them and see where they're at and if there's
I
any.
think she did and hadn't heard back, but I don't know. Maybe she has at this point. So that's the person.
Sure. I didn't just encourage her to reach out again, and if she
Okay.
wants, she can reach out to us, and we can try to convey that directly as well.
Okay. Was there any discussion about artwork, or was this, I'm not sure if this was just her own inspiration?
No, there has
That
been. Yeah,
has there.
the idea is to have some sort of center art piece. I think kind of in the center of the prairie that
Okay.
all paths would kind of lead through at some point. But I haven't been involved in that particular aspect. My understanding was the Safety Service Director's office was going to work out some deal potentially with some of the colleges and their art programs to do something with that, but I'm not entirely certain.
Biodegradable was the big term.
Okay, well, I know she did say she left him a message as well. I think I
Okay.
was low down on the list just when she didn't get an answer. She's like, I'll try Sarah.
Yeah.
So, okay, I just
Yeah,
wondered.
well, yeah, if she wants to reach out to us, we can kind of send an email out. and-
Okay, I haven't
push that
talked to
through
her in
him.
the last couple weeks, so maybe she's heard something out.
No
I just
problem.
wondered, A, I didn't know if there was really a project for that, and B,
It's still the plan. I don't know what their timeline is on that. I don't know if they're waiting for it to be established before they really get too in the weeds on it, pun intended. Or if they've already got something ready to go. So I'm
okay.
not sure. Sorry.
Thank you. I've got Hartley and Commerce Park on here. I have a meeting with them on the 4th to go over everything. They have decided they want to plant the trees. My concern and conversation with Brian is we're pretty late in the season to be digging trees. They're already starting to bud. So there are several varieties that are acceptable to be putting in late or digging late. So we'll see where that goes. So once he said yes, they were doing that, I went ahead and ordered the water bags. So we've got the water bags on order. We'll have them. We may not use them right away, but we'll have them. So I don't have anything other than I'm going to talk with him some more, and then we'll work out a plan from there. So on the TCP, have you started planting any TCP trees yet, Ryan?
We're working. We got, yeah, I was working on it today. We were actually looking at the flags, making sure the flags were in and calling up, so we're gonna start Monday.
Okay. And I know you did Sandusky Street.
Yeah.
You got Pleasant and Catherine Street, and then you got the West End. Have you done?
Pleasant and Catherine Street was the streets today I was working on to get the roofs marked out on.
I thought I saw a truck on West High last week sometime
Yeah.
that said what you guys did.
Yeah, in front of the Mount Vernon Inn.
Yeah, we got those three in.
So he's working at it. So if you get calls, people asking about when are the trees coming, someday.
It won't be right along
I said
now.
soon.
But yeah,
That was more optimistic.
they're working on them, yes. Any questions about that? I have more I want to talk about with the grant program, but I want to get through this real quick here. So, oh, I did skip Arbor Day. Arbor Day. Dan Emmett School is the school of choice this year. Well, the school that has so far said okay, but I don't have any of the details other than it's going to be April 25th. So once spring break is over next week, I can have more communications with them and we'll get things nailed down as to what we're going to do. We have a bio retention pond was part of the community development block grant program in there, and it's right by the ball diamond. And there's a plan to plant that with whatever, I don't know, stuff that grows in a bio retention pond.
Native plants.
So I don't know what all the varieties are and who's going to do that, but I think Quentin has a community group that's interested in helping with that. So maybe with that will be planted before the Arbor Day, and maybe not. And then Brian Ball has told us we can put some mulled cypress in that area too. They'll help soak up some of the water. So we've got a couple things on track there, but nothing solid at this moment. And by the time we meet next time, Arbor Day will be over. So as I know more, I will communicate with everybody what's going on with that. I got a late start. I kept thinking about and talking about it, but I didn't get on the stick. Then I've got the public square arboretum here. Zane's still working on the application with that, and I think there were still a few trees that need to be, or shrubs that we needed to identify. And I talked with Emil with his expertise in design, landscape design and all. We were gonna make up new kiosks for the square. The ones we have now are about this big. We're gonna go quite a bit bigger with some QR codes and things. The company in town that makes that stuff has not been open. Their phone number doesn't work, and my emails have been returned. So I'm gonna have to find another company. The guy that does the signs for me in my office is in Shelby, Ohio, so I might contact him and see if he'd be willing to take on the project. I'm sure he'd be willing, but how it works in his work schedule and timeline, I don't know yet.
So are they just, signage with QR codes, or are they, what, you said kiosk? Is there-
Well, on the square at each corner, with your back to the monument, I have a picture of it. You can see it's about yay big.
Probably
and-
walked by it.
Yeah, you've walked by it a million times.
Oh,
It's
okay.
about this big and it's faded and you can barely read what it says, and it shows the locations of trees and has names. And we wanted to do something along that line, only a little more detailed with a QR code, either for each tree, depending on the size we make the thing, or one QR code for each quadrant that identifies all the trees with facts about them. Same like the fountains there, fountain with facts about it. The plan is to move the Veterans Memorial out to, it's not the CANC anymore, what is it, Heartland Park? Freedom Park?
Liberty
guys-
Park. Liberty
Liberty
Park.
Park.
We got there.
Liberty
Sorry.
Park is the statue,
Close.
but the park itself has been renamed
God,
to,
I'm so confused now.
yeah. We keep changing names, but out in that area. So it's gonna be moved, but I don't know when. So that will kind of play into when the kiosks get made.
American Heritage Park.
American Heritage Park.
Oh,
Okay. So the veterans,
All these words floating around here.
the veterans, and I think I have the diagram of the layout of it. Or the proposed
I
layout.
don't know. I guess that's
Yeah.
the final.
This is the proposed layout, for anybody who wants to look at it. When you look, this is the Dan Emmett house. So when you kind of look, where the parking lot is here, that's the proposed layout for that. You can pass that around. So once all that happens, then we'll work on getting the signage. So the square will get its designation sometime this summer. But I don't have a timeline. We have a lot of things in the air on it. Okay?
Are they gonna remove the downtown?
Yeah. Everything from the square will go into this,
Oh,
out there on that
okay.
part. Okay. I didn't have it under old business, but I want Randy to talk a little bit about what's going on his end. If he's got anything to say.
Well, right now, we don't have a whole lot, still waiting on our water equipment. I did get a call about the bags, they're supposed to be delivered tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow, okay, because we got the invoice and I said, I don't think they've come yet.
Yeah, tomorrow between 10 and 3, so,
All right.
other than that, it's not a whole lot.
I see you had a water bag, did you just find one? or-
Yes, that strange guy brought it in up there.
Oh.
New Russ.
Ryan bought it, and it's too complicated for me, so I returned it, so.
All right, the water truck equipment, when I called them and said, hey, what's going on with that? And it was in the loading area being crated last week. So hopefully it gets on a truck this week and gets delivered. So sometime maybe this or next week, it'll be delivered. And then I haven't heard from Tom yet. We talked about a meeting with all the contractors for the mowing in the parks and things, but I haven't heard when that's gonna
I
happen.
discussed that with him, and he hasn't put anything together yet or had time, so.
But we still intend to meet with all the contractors to talk to them about turning before they hit the trees and not hitting the water bags and things like that. I'm sure they'll appreciate it when I say that. Turn before you hit the tree.
Yeah. Well, last year, I think most of it was not in city parks. It was at the church, which that wasn't our contractors or.
Yeah.
So.
But hopefully that it's someone that is doing something for the city, so it gets that information out. Okay. On here I have the ODNR grant. Fiona's working on that. We had Saturday we went to a program that was presented by the Licking County Pollinator Pathway Group on food forest.
North Central.
North Central Pollinator. It was a woman, and she didn't have any specific training, but she's been doing a backyard food forest. And it was very interesting how she's got it set up and what she's doing. But not being a formal thing, it was like, darn, it wasn't what necessarily I wanted to be able to focus in on. But it was good information. So when that comes up again, maybe we'll be a little better versed in some of the things that they're talking about. But Fiona's working on that grant, and I think there's something coming up on the 27th.
Yeah, this week, I think it's on Thursday, there's a grant workshop specifically for that grant, and so we'll find out more information, like if they're even going to continue funding it.
Yeah, if it hasn't been cut or anything yet.
Yeah.
Okay. So hopefully it hasn't been cut, and then we get the rest of the information we need and get the application out.
Yep.
And that was targeting the industrial park and then also the food forest.
Was the food forest based on people sort of doing it in their own yards sort of thing?
Well,
Or is it more like the Mrs. Salva's thought over
for the grant, it was more for Arch Avenue Park for the big, what they had talked about.
but the lady who gave the talking, licking?
She did it more just in her yard
Is
and
that
using it for
private?
sustainability in her yard and her neighbors. But it was interesting how you, sounded like a lot of work. That's what it really boiled down to. It sounded like a lot of work, the way she does it. But she rotates things around and does other things where I think for Arch Avenue Park, from my understanding in the conversations, once they plant it, they're gonna leave it like it is. And they had gone in and staked out area and Arrow Foundation Park, and it was
Arch Park.
Arch Park. At least they didn't say Burge. Yeah, in Arch Avenue Park. But it was a much larger area than the Parks Department was willing to give up. So they have a proposal to pare it down. But then Zane had mentioned if you go the far east end of Arch Avenue Park, there's an area that has a lift station in it, its own little space. We planted Sienna Glens around it years ago. It's a much larger area than what they were going to get in the park itself.
What's the lift station?
Sanitary lift station. So basically when you run out of fall for your gravity sewer, you gotta lift it back up so it can fall back down. Didn't have enough room to make it to the wastewater plant.
Gotcha.
Basically.
So there's a little concrete pad there with a pump in it and then a big green space that they're just mowing. It was 6/10 of an acre as opposed to less than a half an acre is what they're
So
gonna
is
get.
it gonna shift to that end?
Well, we
maybe,
don't
or
know.
Don't know, okay.
We don't know. Haven't had any conversations with them yet, but Parks Department was not willing to give up the space that they wanted.
And there were issues with the easements for the levee and for the proposed transmission line with AEP.
So they're working that out. So
Come
we'll
on, Randy.
see where that goes. I know, Randy.
She wanted that.
Randy,
before.
sign off on it.
Yeah, she wanted half the park. Yeah, so that little project is, we'll see where it goes. So then, it's under other because things have come up since we made the agenda. One of the things that I want to talk about, and I'm going to have Zane talk about this. I'm going to give everybody one of these. This is what we sent out last year when we did the West End. This was the postcard that went out. And then, well, Zane, you want to talk to a little bit about how this worked?
Yeah. Oh, excuse me. There's a lot of cracks. Last year, we sent out mailers to the west end south of High Street, all the way down to Arch Park, as well as a couple other areas, Sandusky Street, Catherine Street, and Pleasant East, and they got a letter and this postcard, which is prepaid for them to return to gauge their interest in receiving a tree. These are targeted projects that Doc and others work on putting together, and they received one of these. It's just a template. I don't even know where it originated from. It was here when I started, and the idea is it's a little confusing, and we would like to update it. So find something that would be more interesting to look at, gauge interest more, just any ideas in general. We'd like to update it. So we would like to get the board members' opinions on that, and any other input would be welcome.
What they did on each one of the cards, they put a number on the card and it corresponded to a mailing list. And then somehow it got lost and mixed up, and we wound up with cards we didn't know where they belonged.
Yeah, which we figured out, but it did cause a bit more work, so.
Lot more work. And then in talking with Quentin, he said, well, there's a younger segment of the population that probably doesn't know how the Postal Service works. And Samara's shaking her head, yeah. So maybe a QR code that would take them directly
I
to
agree,
the,
yeah.
the link on the city.
Well, that would be much more efficient use of funds too. Postage now, what is 79 cents or 75 cents or whatever for each postage you send, and so you're doubling that, one to send it to them, one for them to be able to send it back. So
yeah, that's, something that, so I ask it, everybody take one and then kind of look at it and come up with some ideas, some things you'd like to change, something you can do to make it better. Let's talk about it, because we need to get it organized and get these out earlier this year than what we've done before, okay?
yeah.
So that was this. Okay, thank you. Do you have anything else with that?
No.
Okay, I appreciate you.
No, just kind of what we talked about. I think the earlier is important. Like, we've had lower interest for these in the past, last year, and I think our program in general gets spread around a lot more, which is great. So anyway, also we can handle greater capacity when you're looking at these would be good too, because we sent out 700 letters, received half of them back, and a third of them were yeses. So even on top of that, so we got a lot of interest, which is great. So yeah, just kind of, I think we're growing, and so maybe finding a way, maybe just the QR code or something else to make it a little more manageable for volunteers and seasonal help who kind of help keep these things running.
When we mail these out, we use like metered mail, and I have to plead ignorance. I don't know how metered mail works.
It should be a
Do we
cheaper
pay-
rate though.
Do we pay because we stamped it, or do we pay when they return it, when it gets used?
Once it gets stamped, it should be paid.
Once it gets stamped, so if we do a postcard, yeah, again, we're paying twice, but if we only do a QR code, then how much of the population will we
I
miss?
would think there's like a city or a bulk rate though.
Yeah, we have a contract rate.
I think we pay 39 cents per
Yeah.
envelope, and it'd be the same for the.
Yeah.
Right.
So that does save a little bit, but just thinking about that, so.
I mean, I guess my comment is QR codes, if they route to somewhere, need to be a different one for each project, like, or each area, right?
No, we go to the base. We could format the back end.
That's what I'm
to-
saying, so that it's like the TCD people who are just randoms who sign up, it's a different list from the mailings from the, if you have different
It
areas.
could be, or you could add a box on the TCP form that says, is this for TCP or is this for, and we would, when we send the letter, it'll say project, whatever, and then they could just check a box
Oh,
in it's
on
for
the
that
application,
project.
on the
Yeah.
online application.
Yeah.
Check which project you're involved in.
Something that like sort of separates it.
Separate it
Yeah.
out, yeah.
The
Yep.
Google Forms aren't hard to create, so if we need to create a separate one and create a link, that's not
Yeah.
difficult. The QR generations.
Yeah, that the back end is really simple. QR codes are free to generate and all that stuff, and Google Forms are free and easy to set up. So that part doesn't really matter so much. Yeah, we can keep it separate or find a way to make them work together.
So, yeah, we just, next time, let's have some ideas, and
Mhm.
let's come up with a little better idea. There's gotta be a way.
I even think just either
Yes or
do a
no?
QR code or have them email or call
Yeah.
and not have a return one come back, and that would save half the postage.
Just
Yeah.
one letter that has everything on it.
I'm fine with that. Yeah, we.
Yeah, that's,
And even just streamline like
Yeah.
where they want it, if they want it, if they don't. It's kind of a lot of words for
Yeah.
people to look at.
yeah, when we don't read things to begin with,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
it worked in the past when you're sending it to 30, 60 addresses, but when you're sending it to a possible 500,
hundred.
it's a lot. So, yeah.
Okay.
And then we can, instead of doing a card, we can do a print it out on a paper and stuff it, so that we don't have to pay an intern to manually stuff every envelope. We can
Mhm.
use the stuffer.
Yeah, we have a machine that does it all.
Good deal.
So, yeah.
Great, thank you. So now we've talked a little bit about how we want to communicate or get the projects out into the community. We want to talk about the projects. So, Mansfield Avenue, we have a mixed-use path going in there. It's a 10-foot path. It's going to go out the east side of Mansfield Avenue from the cemetery. It starts at the cemetery, doesn't it? Where we,
The school.
at the school, starts at the school. We're going to fix the sidewalk from the school to where the cemetery, where the wall was built though, right?
To Belmont.
Belmont, okay. Most of it then, okay. We'll go from Belmont on the east side down to, so go to the church before it crosses over? Crosses over somewhere down by the church.
Right at that bridge, right? Right before the
It crosses over,
That's the Lutheran Church?
Well, yeah,
Grace Brethren Church?
somewhere in that area, it crosses
I can't remember
over
exactly
and it'll
where
be
it
on the
crosses.
west side until it gets to the city line. It's a 10-foot wide mixed-use path. So I would like to target Mansfield Avenue to get some trees in along that path. Make it one of the target areas.
Is it, did you just say east side or west side of?
It's mostly on the east side, then it flops to the west side. There's also going to be sidewalk on the west side, opposite the shared use path on the east side.
Oh, there
So
is?
there's going to be, there's going to be a portion of, I believe between Belmont and Nash Street, where there's not currently any sidewalk. We're
Right.
going to put sidewalk there,
Okay.
connect that.
Down to where the school crossing is.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there might be some, and I wish I had the plans in front of me, there might be some north of there too. But
Okay.
we could get you a set of the plans. The bid just advertised yesterday, or last Friday maybe?
Saturday, wasn't it? It was like.
Yeah, I can't remember.
It was
So
recently.
we'll be opening the bid in 30 days and we'll have a contract, within the next 2 months, so.
So it should go in before fall. So I'd like to target that area for trees with the community development block grant, which is in the Dan Emmett neighborhood. What's the streets, Emmett and?
News, Emmett, Marma, Decatur.
They did some of that this year. They're gonna be doing more next year. Is that, or are they done there now
So
until?
this year, all that's left to do is paving and sidewalks, curb and gutter. All the underground utilities are
All
done.
the underground. So when that community development block grant went through 2 years ago, the Shade Tree Commission volunteered, or part of the program was we would put in 30 trees. So we'll be doing 30 trees in that neighborhood. And we can make that mixed-use path part of that.
So none of those 30 have gone in yet?
No, none of it's gone in. So that'll be a targeted project, the neighborhood and Mansfield Avenue. Then, last year, they tore up the neighborhood of Fern and Grange and Clinton and put in storm sewers through there, and there were some trees removed, and there are very few trees in that neighborhood. So I think we should target that neighborhood. Because the city's been in there and done
Right.
things.
We have one going in, or maybe it's already in on Grange.
Oh, they did, where you had that flag?
Yeah, and then the other lady, as I spoke to you about, never.
Never got back with you. Well, we'll target that neighborhood and hopefully get some more trees in there. So those were the areas that I thought, and then obviously the west end,
Yeah, the north side.
the north side
High Street.
of High Street. Yep, so there's 3 areas that we're gonna target this year. So, Sarah, Laura,
Yeah,
I
dog
turned towards you and said, Sarah.
has to do it once.
You know, you did a great job with the West End. We'll just
Okay.
pick that one up again.
Yep.
But now we have 3 other members. You obviously do TCP. You're going to stick with that. You've got that one running pretty well. So we've got 3 other members that we're going to tag you guys to
Dan
do it
Emmett.
all. Do it all on your own. No one's going to help you at all.
Dan Emmett, I want Dan Emmett.
We got Dan Emmett, Mansfield Avenue, and Grange and Fern Avenue.
And it's all the same area. So
It's all
honestly,
really-
they
it's
can
all
work together
connected.
and
Well, then we all three can work together.
You can all
That's what I
3
would
work together.
suggest, yeah.
Yeah.
Because
And
even after that, we've got the Fairgrounds Road area. That project's going on.
they're going to put water lines out through there. So that could be another one.
So are these targeted areas going to
Part
take
of
up
it
budget
is. Part of it
for
is
this year?
longitude and latitude.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Are you open to suggestions for other parts of town, maybe as mini targets? Or?
Well, yeah, what do you got?
Well, it just seems like Coshocton Avenue, not just the commercial part, but like in town where there's still houses. But also, it seems like there's some areas in the commercial areas where some trees could be in. It just feels like when you head out that way, there's barely
Tons
a
of places for trees out there. We hit Coshocton Avenue from Center Run east, probably, 6 or 7 years ago. And what you see is what we got. You know, there was not a lot of cooperation, not a lot of people interested.
I sort of understand better toward town, like there's some tree lawns and sometimes the sidewalk is right.
Yeah, right up against the road.
But, so those are more homeowners, but when it comes to commercial businesses, is it the same kind of thing where even if they're along the road, they don't own like the city owns the first whatever, depending on where it is, 8 feet, 10 feet, 6
Yeah, the
feet?
right-of-ways are right-of-way. It doesn't matter what the property next to it is, if it's residential or commercial, the right-of-ways are right-of-way.
So when you did it going east, was it that the commercial properties were like, we don't want it, so,
We don't want to block our sign, we don't want to block our building, no one will know we're here.
but do they have, I guess, is that,
Well,
I know you always try to ask, but is, at some point, is that,
Yeah, I know, I'm in my old age, I'm becoming less tolerant of that. Just because
it just seems like a kind of area, once you start going east on that road, that there's,
nothing.
yeah.
Well, you know, even the residential part, a lot of those houses have sold in the last year.
Right.
A lot of them
So
on
there-
the
yeah, there
south
could be a
side,
new
so there
group
might
of-
be,
New group of people. that
And there's
live
kind of
there.
like a mini commercial section, you know, in town still, but there's a lot of parking lot and no.
Bicycle.
Yeah. There are like 4 or 5 businesses that just feel like hardscape. So anyway, that's my, and then there are a couple little pockets downtown. I think we discussed before, the one just opposite the post office and north of what was Carl and Company. And I think you said the bank owns that, but it's like a nice little,
ADF or Land Bank, one of those groups just took that property.
Both of them, there's 2 properties there.
it's like half parking lot and half green grass now.
I'm not sure what all they took, but I know that they just acquired that
I
area.
thought the land bank got the grass part of it. The stone is the bank.
So is that that would be someone you would
That would be through the.
be able to
land.
ask about if we
Yeah.
could stick in, I mean, that just seems like a,
Yeah, do you want,
corner.
did you get it to put green space, or do you want to build a commercial? You know, we want to build it out commercial. Yeah, I don't know what their plans are, but I do meet with Jeff.
Jeff, that's what I thought you were saying, so,
Yeah, I can ask him about
okay. Yeah, that corner seems like it'd be nice to have a,
And then the old strand glass is now the health department. They've torn down the buildings there for their parking lots. I've been in conversation with Zach about the parking lots and putting trees in. I don't have a firm date on that. I don't know if that'll happen this year or next, but we will be in that area doing that.
that's just West Gambier and West Vine between like Mulberry going west.
Yeah.
The old, you know, before you get to Route 13, it seemed like they could
They will, and
get some.
Sandusky Street project is a 26 or 27 project.
Fiscal year 27, which means that we can start construction July 1st or something like that of 26.
Okay, so those are those areas between Mulberry
And the new-
and Sandusky
You'll wait.
would be good areas to hit when we go into Sandusky. When we go in and plant trees on Sandusky. make that part of that whole, we can just pick up all those blocks from Mulberry to Sandusky.
Yeah, and we're gonna have a lot of plantings in there anyway.
As part of the construction.
As part of the
they can
construction,
just add
so.
to it.
What about the Living Center? Did they ever?
No,
Sign
they've
on?
never, I contacted them, they've never gotten back. And speaking of that, I contacted Rick Schaefer about the spots there at the Board of Education, haven't gotten a word back yet.
Okay, well, it is vacation. Spring break or whatever.
Yeah, spring break.
So, fingers crossed.
But yeah, maybe they'll come through, maybe they won't, we'll see. If he doesn't open that space up, we'll still do the 3 along the street.
Right.
Let's see, I meet with the NAS on the 11th. They've got some projects they want to do, and one of them's going to be Cougar Drive. So when we look at the NAS, Cougar Drive, Mansfield Avenue, Clintonville, which is the Fern Avenue area, the Dan Emmett area, we're going to be hitting our budget real hard. And we get the West End. So some of those projects might be 2-year projects, depending on the response. How many people did you have in the south side of, that you could have put more trees in?
Oh, that wanted more than one?
That wanted more?
Only a couple.
Only a couple?
Yeah.
Okay. Because we expect to get, once these trees get in, we expect to get calls from those people anyway, from that area. We'll add to that. And depending where the trees go, if they're on city right away, we can use Arbor Trust money. We don't have to use grant money for that. We have to use the grant money for anything that's not on city property. Any private property. All right, so those were my lines of thought. So we got 3 people that are gonna take over that. If you guys wanna take Coshocton Avenue too.
You know what, I suddenly realized, you get 3 newbies together with no guidance from the.
That's what I said, you're
from
on
the
your
other
own, no one's
people.
gonna help you at all, you gotta just figure it out, reinvent the wheel.
We're here.
We
Yeah,
can do it.
We
We're,
can help you.
yes, the
by
engineering department
anytime.
is full of, they've got all kinds of help, I have experience with it, I can help, and you've got Sarah and Laura that have done it, and they,
No, it's really just administrative details, getting in touch with the people. If I have questions that require tree intelligence, I ask other people, you
yeah,
know.
when Brian
so-
is here, Brian is all, you know, you've got.
It's
got
really
good-
just making
good
the contact.
knowledge.
Yep, I just spend a day texting every number, making notes on their responses.
Well, we can't do that till we get something back, right?
We gotta get something back, yes,
Okay.
and we gotta get
So
something
you're not
out.
waiting on us to do something, we're waiting for you.
We gotta
to-
get something out.
Is that right? Okay.
We gotta-
Did you see that? We're not working
Yes,
yet.
yes. I got that.
But you will. We will put you
She's
to
gonna
work.
be in college.
Ah,
We can text back and forth.
that's right. She can put in trees in between exams. All right. Well, I've rambled on for a while. Anybody else have anything they'd like to talk about? What you got?
First off, it doesn't make sense to me when you say these commercial businesses don't want trees. I mean, there are plenty of businesses downtown where you planted nice plantings of fastigiate carpinus and hybrid fastigiate oaks. I don't think they are a problem with planting them and viewing the signage of the businesses. You know, so this is ridiculous. I don't.
I'm not arguing that point. I agree.
Yeah.
You go to
So clearly, the
Westerville.
right trees have to be planted in order for their argument to be valid. You know, so
Yeah,
that's the first thing. I mean, that's.
drive to Westerville, you know.
Plus, there's all kinds of arguments for planting trees. I mean, keeping temperatures down, you know, respiration, oxygen release, et cetera, et cetera. But the second thing I'd like to say is in my neighborhood, which is just not being cared for at all by the city of Mount Vernon, and yet I pay $6,000 worth of property tax, so I'm trying to figure out what that's being used for. And other residents do. Now, the argument I was told 2 months ago was, you can't do anything out there until Schleybox does what their job. That's not sitting very well with the residents, that argument. Okay, we have trees that are hazard trees out there. We have trees with rock. We have trees that are being girdled by improper staking. These are things the city of Mount Vernon should do for us, okay? And we're paying taxes big time, more than most Mount Vernon residents. Okay, so I just want to bring that up, and I'm going to continue to bring it up. And you're not going to like it when I do.
These are tree lawn trees?
Huh?
These are tree lawn trees?
These are boulevard trees.
Okay.
And 3 or 4 trees were annihilated by the deer because the tree guard that they used was so wimpy, it blew off. So, in some, you know, so I've been involved with telling people what kind of tree guard to buy that's gonna be sturdy and whatnot. Okay, and then, the residents tell me they've counted 28 deer in that area, in one time. 28. Now, the grandson of a resident out there was covered with deer ticks, just recently, just last week. And you know what deer ticks mean? They mean Lyme disease. So, if anyone, I'm an outsider here. I was an outsider in Newark, even though I lived there for almost over 30 years. Okay? I'm never going to be an insider here or an insider there or anywhere, because I grew up in Minnesota, right? So, but somebody here is an insider, and maybe the mayor can be persuaded to get some deer culling going on here because of the disease factor that's involved, if nothing else. And I mean, nobody cares about plants in general, but people do get concerned when there are diseases being transmitted, right? So,
Well,
but I don't know if any of you guys, being perhaps Mount Vernon natives, and have any influence with the mayor or not, but I surely don't, because I've written them letters, get no response.
yeah, I'm not sure how to do that. It's not,
I know it's not your forte, it's not your bailiwick, so to speak, but it really is a cause of concern for the residents there.
we don't have any jurisdiction in that area right at the time.
I don't understand why, because we are part of the city.
Mm-hmm. So
Why would the shade tree
Now,
be?
you told me the argument 2 months ago, I know.
Why would the shade tree be in the deer hunting business?
no, I think
No.
we're talking
No,
about
he's talking
the trees
the
that
tree-
were recently planted
trees
as
not
part of
Oh,
the
but you're
development.
talking about 27
The
deer.
deer have annihilated perfectly good shade trees that have been planted there.
Are they on city property?
Yes,
Yeah,
kind of.
well.
That's still a great,
Who maintains the tree?
I know, but
You
when I
plant-
get my property tax bill, that's not great.
So if you plant a tree at my house, I got the water bank, but is it my responsibility to take care of the tree as well?
So, in a new development, I'm not an expert in this area, but my understanding is there's stages of sort of acceptance for the property that's eventually handed over to the city. So the trees themselves are basically in a warranty by the developer Schlaball. So for whatever period is in their development plan, I don't know what that is, I can't remember if it's 2 years or 3 years, they're to maintain those trees that they plant. And that way, the reason for that is so that the burden of the development isn't passed on to the city until after they've had a chance to grow, right? Because those first couple of years are where we're really gonna see our losses if they're gonna have any. So during those first 2 to 3 years, it's their responsibility to make sure that those trees thrive. And if there are any that have issues with, the developer needs to go back and replant them, or bring in an expert to do any pest management, or fertilize them if they need to because the soil isn't good enough.
I'm just curious, what's sleigh ball saying to you?
We pay an extra $40 on our water bill, supposedly some of that for sewer, but some of it's supposed to be for maintenance around there and we can't see any of that happening, and that doesn't go over well.
Again, what's sleigh ball saying to you about like maintaining the trees?
Well, usually I'll tell them that these trees were destroyed, and then I don't know what happens after that. I know the misplantings that are going on there are grotesque. I can show you an area where there are about 50 Norway spruce within a 50-yard by 10-foot wide space. Now that is just.
Again, who planted it? Did we plant those?
no,
No, they did.
So why are you?
So,
I'm
because
just
they
being
don't
nosy.
have
Why are
any
you bringing
counseling
that to
from,
us?
because they don't have any counseling going on and advice from people that are knowledgeable, like some of the people on this committee and in the city, they're doing this on their own. And that would never be allowed if by the City of Mount Vernon Tree Committee.
Sounds like you need to get on the inside with Schleybaugh, your developer, and say, hey, this is what's
Just
going
to
on.
explain real quick, so their Shade Tree does actually have a bit of a responsibility in this, in that Shade Tree approves the development planting plan, and it's you kind of have a quasi responsibility to enforce that. Not that you have really any enforcement action that you can take, but what Shade Tree can do is do a walkthrough and say, hey, we noticed that the plantings don't align with the approved plan, or the removals don't align with the approved plan, and then you could bring that to city, like the engineering department, and then we could enforce that and write them a notice saying, it was brought to our attention on this date that these trees, were not planted in accordance with the plan, and we could bring enforcement action on them, basically saying you need to do this or else, whatever.
Can we get a meeting, Quentin? Is that your forte?
I'm sorry?
Who from the Shade Tree Commission needs to reach out and get a meeting with Schleybaugh, help these residents out?
Well, we don't necessarily have to have a meeting. We need to first assess what's going on and see if what they're doing actually is something that we have any jurisdiction over. So if my recommendation would be is for some Shade Tree members to go out to the Gilchrist Estates development, maybe meet with our visitor here and have him walk around and show us his concerns, and we can compare that to the approved plans and then see if there's anything that we need to talk to Schleybaugh about, and then we go from there. We might probably start with a simple email or a phone call to Schleybaugh saying, hey, we have some concerns. Are you aware of this? Are you going to address them, or do we need to talk more about it?
So the approved plans, you said that the Shade Tree Commission approved the plans through the review process. Is that true?
Yeah, so the Shade Tree has a one step in the development approval. So there's an entire development plan that was approved by the Municipal Planning Commission, and part of that is contingent upon the Shade Tree reviewing and approving the tree removal and tree planting, the landscaping plan.
The plans at that time were detailed enough that you could tell where the individual trees were, or were they just blocked out?
So the development plan has exhibits that show planting and removal, but there's also text. So part of the development plan talks about a certain tree density that needs to be planted. So maybe it's saying we're going to plant 3 trees for every 100 linear feet on both sides of the street or something like that. So it's not so much that we can just look at an exhibit. We actually would have to go into the text of the development plan and make sure that they're meeting what was approved that they said they would do.
And to this date, that hasn't been done.
No, because
It's not my understanding now.
we're in a quasi status
Yeah.
right now.
Okay.
Yeah. I should have started with a more positive comment. No, seriously, this committee doesn't exist in Newark. Newark has no shade tree whatsoever, so you guys are light years ahead of them. And even though the Arboretum tried to work with the city of Newark, you cannot see any evidence of any planning going on in Newark whatsoever, outside of the right downtown where they put a lot of money in planning. So you guys should be very proud of yourself.
Is it possible for this board to see those plans again?
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to come downstairs, I can print them out for you.
Have you seen
Or I
the
could,
plans?
or if it's easier, I can email the group the PDF. I don't know. Yes, Samara's like, yes, send me the PDF. Please don't print it out. So I can
Well,
email
why
you the
don't do
PDF.
that, and then that way we can all take a look at it at our own time, and maybe make notes, and the next time we meet, we can take a look, some discussion about that, and maybe actually go, like you said, go out and look.
Yep.
Meet with you and actually walk the site with our
Yeah.
plans in hand, so that we can see where we're off base and where we're not off.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll be happy to send you guys the development
Or
plans.
is there a motion on the board, is there a motion in the meeting to form a committee, go out there before our next meeting? I'd like to go out
Okay.
there as soon as
Can we go out
possible.
before the next meeting? Can everybody have everything reviewed and be comfortable with that?
Just depends on when.
It's a pretty large document, so probably, I don't know, if I had to guess, 150 pages.
Yeah, but that's not all shade tree stuff.
No.
Right.
It's just a lot to sift through.
Will you just give us what's important to us?
All right, I can sift through it first. I'll do my best. I'll try not to miss anything. I'll send you the full document, and then I'll also send you what I think is important. That way, in case I miss anything, you can
Okay.
catch it.
Do we have your contact information, name and all that? So-
I'll certainly put it on the pad. I just want to tell you, when I saw them do this, first off, I walked up there and they said, do you know what kind of trees these are? I said, well, yeah, they're Norway spruce. Oh, so they didn't know what they were planting. And secondly, I said, you know, you're planting a 60-foot tree with a 30-foot spread, and you've got these trees 5 feet apart. I said, what's going to happen is they're going to grow in, you're going to lose one, then you're going to have a hole in there. They said, we'll just plant more. That's what they did to me. We'll just plant more of these. So it's
Who's they?
Schlabach.
The developer. Okay.
I mean, it's incredible.
And Brian,
I
you're not,
just
you're
know-
not
I
his
know-
you're not his landscaper?
No.
No.
I know that with the way this street tree committee is operating, being at several meetings, I just know that would not have happened had there been any supervision on what's going on out there, or at least counseling and advice. You know, it just wouldn't have happened. Now, there are some good trees planted out there, all right? There are. They've done some good work out there, too.
Well, you give,
Let's do.
well, you give, put your name and address and email and all that.
I'll get it.
So let's do this, let's have Quentin send us the document, and then we'll put it on the agenda for next meeting to have a little discussion about it, and then set up a time to go out and walk.
I should have started with a
That sound fair?
Yep.
Instead of trying to jam it in the next 3 weeks,
Okay.
give us a little time to look over the document.
Well, yeah, that way you will see things budding. It'll be easier to tell what's healthy and what's not for the untrained eye.
But during the review process, when you approved the construction plans, you know, the actual construction plans of all the storm sewer and everything, they didn't have a detailed landscape plan?
There were pretty detailed plans, but it's a little. So there were two parts of the planting. The tree lawn plans, all of that's detailed, so we should be able to see where all the street trees are for the most part.
Actual planting plans and
Yeah, no.
quantities and sizes and
Yep.
species?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, there was also, this was kind of a weird development because we had sort of, I don't know, a mix-up where they ended up kind of removing more trees than were approved. So we came to an agreement with them that they would plant, I think it was 5 trees per lot. Is that correct?
Minimum of 5 trees.
And this is on the private side, so outside of the right-of-way. They would plant a minimum of 5 trees on the private property per lot to make up for those extra trees that were removed, that were not supposed to be removed. So that part, they didn't give us that because the way the development is, you know, they didn't have a specific house already designed for each lot. You kind of buy a lot, decide, you pick your house that you want, and then I'm assuming they probably would have worked with the homeowners to decide what trees they wanted and where, but we did have an approved list for them to work off of. So it's kind of tricky.
Okay. Just trying to catch up,
Yep.
find out where we are.
Okay, well, it's 4 o'clock. I appreciate all the work you guys have been doing. You got some homework. Yay.
Make sure you're here at the
More and
next
more.
meeting.
Yeah, make sure you're here at the next meeting. And then
I appreciate
you guys can go, on your own time, you can drive the Mansfield Avenue range area, kind of look at what you're getting into, so you're familiar with the neighborhoods too. Okay, so,
Make a motion to join the meeting.
I second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye.
Aye, yeah. Aye, yeah.
I think I already had your email somewhere, but.
Okay,
So
so,
I was going around.
Well, I
listing
April's
these,
everything
and
off?
This is my
Let
dead
me know
copy
when you're
because my
off.
color printer wasn't working
right.
right, but there is,
I'll tell you a little bit about this.
if you want to take it, just so you
You're talking
can
about the area.
give specifics to your class or whatever, and you don't
West-
have
Yeah,
to.
I
You
mean,
don't have
I can
to.
even just take a picture.
You're so modern. I'm an old person.
Yeah.
But I was like posting it at the library and,
Yeah.
and a happy bee.
Yeah.
But I ended up not using purple because my red is probably dead.
That's fine. Yeah. Okay.
So yes, if Mrs. Berensmeyer makes it back like safely.
Yeah, hopefully makes
Just-
it back. I don't know.
It's all pretty
See
neat.
how that
I
goes.
figured it was something
yeah.
with spring break or whatever, so.
Okay.
I haven't gotten it.
You all seem like you might be a good fit for the
I do love
Topic.
Latin, so.